Hello everyone, welcome to Maybe Gaming. I'm Nick inside of the comms, of course, Justin, and this is going to be a double feature week because this is our second video of the week. This one's going to be going over Marathon. Everyone is doing it, but I think for us specifically, it would be important that we do it. We generally cover a lot of Destiny content over here on the channel, and I mean, on the show, we also play Destiny as well. At least I
Obviously.
play consistently. Justin's taken a bit of a break for it for a while now, but I think,
I
considering
play
our
it more
history.
passively now, but yeah, Nick's not wrong. Like, we try to play every once in a while.
Yeah, we play every once in a while. We figured since we cover a lot of Destiny stuff on the show, we might as well give our opinions on Marathon because, oh boy, a lot of stuff's coming out of Marathon, especially in relation to Destiny, but we'll get into that. Let's start off at the top, shall we? So, story goes that now we have an official release date for Marathon, March 6th. Now, if you've been keeping attention to your Bungie calendar, you might think, wait a minute, that's a little close to Shadow and Order, and you'd be right. It's like a few days before or after. I can't remember the exact day. However, it seems that that is just going to be the way of things, and as for if it'll affect Destiny, well, it will, unfortunately, because according to Paul Tassi, his sources over at Bungie, and again, this is not us commenting on like a Reddit post or something like that. This is a dude who literally works at Forbes, and as a journalist, is either A, having contacts within Bungie, or B, knows people who has contacts within Bungie, so I trust his word a lot more than most. So while none of this has been confirmed, there's a likely possibility that it will. And according to him, because of the closeness of the Marathon release date to the new Shadow and Order release date for Destiny, Shadow and Order is going to get pushed back to an undisclosed date. He didn't say when, just said it will, to make room for Marathon. And this doesn't surprise me because, frankly, Marathon is a big project, and I always like to call it recently Destiny's or Bungie's Skull and Bones event, where this is a game that they have to get right, in this, or at least in this case, they have to get out the door. And especially Bungie's case, they have to get right because, as we'll cover later on in the show, there's a lot riding on this. They've pulled a lot of resources into making Marathon, and now they're in a financial position where if this does not work, they are screwed. However, that's neither here nor there at the moment. That said, this wouldn't be the only debacle to come from Marathon into Destiny, or in this case, I guess the other way around, into Marathon or into Destiny from Marathon. Because if you've actually been playing Destiny recently, you'll notice that there was a big advert in Destiny talking about how there was, you get a sparrow, a ship, a ghost shell. If you pre-order Marathon, it's all a collab cross event. Well, might have been a few issues with putting this in because it turns out, as of recently, as of today even, or yesterday I should say, Marathon was actually listed as a Destiny 2 expansion. Oops. Why is that important? Because it turns out those who pre-order Marathon just started having Destiny pre-download on their stuff, which is hilarious. And almost sounds like a joke for Bungie trying to increase Destiny's floundering numbers, but nope, it was real. And according to the Marathon team, that has been resolved, so don't worry, you're not automatically going to start having Destiny download on your PC. But still, kind of shows that there is
Something
issues that have come from
interesting
Marathon.
going on there.
Yeah, and this wouldn't even be the first debacle that's come from Marathon and everything related to Marathon. If you remember all the way back last year, there was a whole art theft scandal, which kind of also relates to the fact of the release date change. If you don't remember, Marathon was actually scheduled to release about September 6th, 9th, somewhere around there, last year. But the reason it got delayed all the way to March of this year is because of a massive art debacle that happened. Well, art theft. It is an art theft over at Destiny, or over, goodness gracious, over at Bungie related to Marathon. Turns out an artist had a bunch of their art just yoinked and stick right into Marathon wholesale, and yeah, apparently it was pretty quick to notice. An artist by the name of Anti-Real. I haven't seen any of their content, but apparently if you look in, like a good chunk of their work was just in Marathon, all the way up to like the trailers of the game, which, yeah, that was a whole debacle. I think we covered it in the past. We're not going to go too much into the weeds of that because it's a whole thing in and of itself. But suffice to say, this wouldn't even be the first of many issues that have come as a result of Marathon's creation. Now, according to Anti-Real themselves, they have stated that the whole matter has been settled to their liking, so we can close the book on that. But as a result of that massive art scandal, it had to be pushed all the way from September to March, presumably while they ripped all of Anti-Real stuff out. Why it was even there in the first place, well, again, that's a whole other story. That said, from the auto installing of D2 to the art theft to the possible messing around of D2's release dates, at the end of the day, you can really tell that Bungie really needs this to work. And it doesn't even get as far as going into just the voice cast. If you look at the voice cast, you can tell Destiny is or Bungie. Goodness gracious, I don't know why I keep messing up those. It's been so long since Destiny has been made by Bungie that I just confuse that I just collate the two in my mind. But anyways, you can tell Destiny. There, I do it again. You can tell Bungie desperately needs this to work, and this is going all the way down to the voices they are getting for the game. And if you look, they revealed the voice cast. It is stacked. Now, we're not seeing any Hollywood big shots on the list as far as I know, but we are seeing big names in the games industry. Jennifer English, whose recent successes include Claire Obscura. She's appeared in Soulframe, or she's going to appear in Soulframe. Another one from Claire Obscura, I believe it was, just checking the numbers here. Ben Starr, who also played in Claire Obscura, Hades 2, FF16, Roger Clark, who you might know him as Arthur Morgan, where's my money? That guy. And Neil Newborn, who appeared in Baldur's Gate 3 and Red Dead, or not Red Dead, in Resident Evil 3 Remake. So, yeah, it's a pretty stacked list. So you can clearly tell they are splurging to get as best, talent in the industry as it is into getting this game. So, yeah, it's pretty nutty. That said, like I said, this hasn't come without its issues. Again, we've talked about the fact that Destiny has been affected as a result of Marathon's creation, and that goes all the way back to 2023 when, well, Destiny had its PvP team by and large yoinked over to Marathon to create it. Why am I bringing this up? Well, as I keep telling you, Destiny, or Bungie really needs Marathon to succeed. Even going so far as to, like I may have hinted at earlier, straight up advertising it in Destiny 2. That said, we'll see if this actually works because, like I said, Destiny has been impacted several times over the years by the creation of Marathon, and everything as simple as the game just being a completely different genre, one being a looter shooter and the other being an extraction shooter, which despite having shooter in the name is really the only place their collaboration or where the connective tissue there lies. At the end of the day, you can't blame some Bungie fans for being miffed at Marathon purely out of principle, because like I said, the Destiny PvP team way back in 2023 was just yoinked wholesale, by and large at least, all the way over to create Marathon. The reason they might have done this is honestly kind of simple, or at least it might be simple, and that they really just need to get it out the door. As I said at the beginning of the show, a massive chunk of resources were invested in it, including at the detriment of D2, as we just covered. And the reason they might have done this, and this is me getting a little conspiratorial here, but I do believe this to more or less, actually no, I fully believe it, is that somewhere back down the line, Marathon was created as just this attempt to maybe boost the stock price of Destiny or Bungie. There I go again, confusing it. I'm going to have to fix that one day.
It's okay. I mean, to be fair, the longest of time, people would really just think Bungie
collate one to the other. So
they
my brain really
it's not too bad.
My brain really needs to stop associating them, but I can't help. I can't help it. I really can't. But anyways, Bungie has for the longest time, like I said, now I've lost my train of thought. Let me re-say that again. Oh, goodness gracious. Bungie basically invested a ton of resources into Marathon, including ripping off the D2 PvP team to make Marathon. Why that is? Well, I genuinely believe that it was done basically maybe to boost the stock price of Bungie, honestly, as a company, or maybe even just boost the possible profits they could make off the sale from Sony. Sony even admits they overpaid for Bungie, so maybe this was all done to boost the shares and boost the actual profit of the company by giving them a whole new IP that's technically a remake of an old one, but neither here nor there. All in the name of just making a bigger profit. After all, most of the executives when this was done have probably jumped ship by now. In fact, everyone from the old CEO, the car guy, and a bunch of other executives, I say the car guy because I can't remember his name at this moment, have jumped ship. So who knows? Maybe it was worth it at the end of the day. And now, well, the executives that are left, or the people that are left, have to make this game that they've sunk just a ton of resource into, which is where I come all the way back to the beginning and say this is why I think that this is really Bungie's Skull and Bones event, where they really need to get this game out the door one way or the other. And in Bungie's case, they really need to make this a success because between the massive voice cast, to basically gutting Destiny to some degree, and cannibalizing it for parts for making Marathon, they made this game pretty much in the name of cashing in perhaps on the extraction shooter genre. Back when this game was first announced, Tarkov was still the big thing. Now it's Arc Raiders. And who knows, maybe all this taking from D2 was to expedite the production of Marathon. After all, it wouldn't be the first time in this industry where a game has come out too late to cash in on the thing that it was hoping to cash in on. So who knows, maybe this was an attempt to just cash in on that, and in the name of expediting its development, they decided to cannibalize D2 for parts. Did it help? Probably. But now they've really got to make this work because the numbers are starting to show on D2 that, yeah, people are really starting to feel it. Which, like I said, is probably why some people... I can't blame them as far as the D2 community are concerned if they hate this thing out of principle. Me, personally, I don't, honestly, anymore. Like I said, I've just said why I believe it needs to succeed financially. And, again, it makes business sense why they did what they did. Could they have done it another way? No, but then again, Marathon in its totality seems like a bad idea, but, well, we can't take that back now, so they made their bed, now they gotta sleep in it, is kind of the long story short there. Which kind of brings us to the end of the video and the question of, will we play it? Well, Justin, no. Very likely no.
Probably not, no.
He doesn't do extraction shooters,
I
so...
don't. The only ones that I've kind of enjoy are like things like Deep Rock Galactic and Helldivers, and that's because of the fact that you're fighting the AI. You're not fighting other players, and I don't like extraction shooters where you're fighting other players where all your progress could just snap at a finger and gone.
True, true. And that kind of brings us to another point of, as Paul himself said in a recent video, you got to take an honest look at Marathon. What it's appealing to is hardcore PvPers. Like I said, a good chunk of Destiny's PvP team was yoinked to make this, and it shows. This game is very much going to be competitive in the extreme. It's not just going to be a casual extraction shooter. It is very much going to be, you die, all your stuff gets lost, including the stuff you invested in to get here. So it's going to be hardcore, and that might turn off a lot of people, including, like I said, a lot of Destiny players who are PvE focused. So, why they're advertising there? Like I said, they're desperate to make it a success, but that's neither here nor there. The point is, it's a competitive shooter, or competitive game on the extreme. So will I play it? Maybe. I've played extraction shooters myself. I can't remember, there was an extraction shooter I played on the Xbox whose name I can never bloody remember, Swiped or something like that. I think it was made by My Games, same guys who made, not Tower of Gods, it's a manga, I believe. But a different game that I can't think of. And, it wasn't bad. Granted, it was far more casual, like I said. To a degree that, you don't lose the stuff that you invested in to get here, just the stuff you had in that run that you were trying to cash out. And you can cash out early, granted Marathon can too, but who knows if even that stuff is subjective to you losing if you completely wipe, so...
Yeah,
I might try
it. Saying that it's not like Tarkov, where like at any moment, sure, you can go into an area with like all these fancy gear and equipment, but all that can be lost. It doesn't matter even if you extract it with it already. It all can be lost.
Yeah, it's kind of like I said, it's a really hardcore game. So at the end of the day, will I play it? Maybe. I'll probably wait for it to release, look to see how it performs, and judge from there. Probably not going to pre-order, even if though there is benefits, like I said, to Destiny 2, because I really don't see the point in Ghost Shell and yada. It's decent, don't get me wrong, but we'll see how it performs, right? That said, it has been topping charts in other ways. Apparently, it's one of the most pre-ordered games on Steam at the moment, like 4th or 5th or something like that. Recent numbers.
It's pretty high right now.
So clearly, there are some people who like it. Like I said, maybe people are getting bored of Arc Raiders. That said, as Paul himself even pointed out, Arc Raiders is a pretty high retention rate among players, so who knows if it will be able to break the mold. Like I said, ultimately I think that this game was created to cash in on the extraction shooter genre, and it was just... everything was done to get out the door as fast as possible to ensure that it was able to cash in on that genre. Everything from stripping D2 for parts to, hell, maybe even the art theft. It wouldn't surprise me if that was behind closed doors part of the reason. They were just pushing things out the door quickly because they really needed to get this out as soon as possible. But again, that's all tinfoil hat theory, so don't take any of that as God honest truth. This is just me speculating.
It's all speculation.
But yeah, it kind of brings us to the end of the marathon video. Like I said, thought we'd do a kind of overall recap of what is marathon, where it is, and how it got to where it is, and will we even touch it? Like I said, long story short of that, Justin, no, me, maybe. Um, call me back in a few weeks after March and its release date, and we'll see. As for how do I think of the Destiny 2 delay, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me. Like I said numerous times in this episode, they need to get this a success, and if that means delaying D2 by a week or two, sure, why not? Honestly, delays have never really been a bad thing as far as Bungie is concerned. We've never seen a bad delay at a Bungie, at least not in terms of the quality that comes out of the end product.
No,
Ugh,
every time they've delayed something for what they're working on, it tends to go relatively well enough. Like, there's no real negative from Bungie delaying things. So,
yeah, and especially considering the last major update we got before Renegades was Axe and Iron. Yeah, I said it. Which did not go over well and didn't even have its exotic release on the day. It actually had like an entire month where the exotic wasn't released to buy for time effectively. So, hey, if this delay literally just means that we have less time until we get the exotic release because there's less time now till that happens, then hey, all's the better. Even if something as small as that, I'll take it. So, yeah, it's kind of where we are with Marathon. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all found this informative. And yeah, are you going to play Marathon? Tell me in the comment section. I'm genuinely curious to see how this extraction shooter goes. Like I said, whether I play it or not, I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. There is definitely a part of me that's invested on whether it succeeds or fails. Not out of malice, but purely out of curiosity. But yeah, that's the show. Hope you all enjoyed and have a good week.
have
Bye,
a good
everybody.
one.